I did a video this past summer on how the Montreal Canadiens ruined the Vezina Trophy and caused the NHL to change it. What happened was they had a falling out with Michel Larocque, or Bunny Larocque as he was known as well. And being small and petty about it, because he would have got his name on the Vezina Trophy, which at the time was handed out to goaltenders on the team that had the lowest goals against average in the league, because they knew they were going to get that award. They had it sewed up. They made sure that Denny Herron got enough starts to be on that award, and I believe Rick Sevigny was the other one. And basically, because the NHL saw them switching goalies mid-game and just making a mockery out of the whole award, they said, okay, the Vezina will go to somebody who is voted on as the best goalie in the league. The Jennings goes to the best goals against average. But up until then, the Vezina was awarded to the goaltender with the best goals against average. During the original six era, there wouldn't have been as much arguing about it as there would have been after. Best goals against does not equal best goaltender. That being said, I mentioned in a video earlier today, how different would things have been if they hadn't gone to that idea of best goaltender? So I've lined up your Jennings Trophy winners with Vezina. And keep in mind, up until 1982, these guys would have won the Vezina Award or shared it. But depending on how many, I believe it's 25 games you have to play to get on the award. So Montreal made sure they had 3 so that Bunny Larocque didn't go up there by himself. They really wouldn't have wanted Bunny Larocque up there at all, to be honest. He was basically promised the starter's job when Ken Dryden retired, and then he got hurt, and his replacement played better than he did, so Montreal was like, nuts to you. And he's like, you guys told me to be the starter, and they're like, we'll trade you to Toronto. And they did. And that was pretty much it for Bunny Larocque. Toronto back in the 80s? Yeah, that was it. 1982, so the first year it does go to Montreal again. Walmsley and Herron. The Vezina goes to Billy Smith. Billy Smith awarded best goalie in the league, which he was absolutely. Now, 1983, Billy Smith gets both awards in that he had won the Vezina in 82 and 83. He wins the Jennings. He shares it with Rolly Melanson, or Rolly the goalie. 1983, Pete Peters gets the Vezina Trophy for best goalie in the league. Peters was absolutely lights out for the Boston Bruins that year. 1984, Pat Riggin and Al Jensen, and everybody knows I love Pat Riggin. The Washington Capitals, that was your Jennings Award winner, and the Vezina went to Tom Barrasso, who I loved less. Among the two, I would say I love Barrasso less. But Barrasso came in as a teenager, and he won some awards as a teenager. He was pretty fantastic. He was a revelation for the Buffalo Sabres. 1985, Barrasso and Sauve share the Jennings. So Barrasso won a single award for both. Pretty solid. Meanwhile, Pelle Lindbergh was voted best goaltender in the league, and of course Lindbergh would perish in a car accident shortly thereafter, and we'll never know what Pelle Lindbergh might have been. 1986, Darren Jensen and Bob Froese share the Jennings Trophy. And of all of the goaltending duos on the board, I admire what Philly was able to do, but I would say that's probably the weakest duo to share that award. 1986, the Vezina went to John Van Beesbroek of the New York Rangers. That is his only win. Without that Vezina, and if it had been awarded the way that it was before, Van Beesbroek doesn't have any hard work, because he doesn't win a Jennings. Not with the Rangers. 1987 through 1989, Patrick Waugh and Brian Hayward shared the Jennings Award, and they were fantastic. One of the best tandems I ever saw. Hextall won Vezina in 1987. He never won the Jennings. 1988, Grant Fuhr won Goalie of the Year. That's the only time he won it. He did end up getting a Jennings later. 1989, Patrick Waugh wins the Vezina, as he does in 1990. Now, in 1990, your best goals against is Andy Moog and Reggie Lemelin of the Boston Bruins. That was a pretty solid tandem as well. 1991, a wonderful phenom named Ed Belfour comes along. He wins both the Jennings and the Vezina. Not to be outdone in 1992, this guy Patrick Waugh wins both trophies. 1993, Belfour says, oh yeah? And he wins both trophies. And 1994, Hasek puts an end to it. Hasek and Fuhr share the Jennings Trophy, and Hasek wins himself his first Vezina. Won't be his last. 1995, Belfour wins the Jennings again with the Blackhawks, but Hasek wins the Vezina again. 1995. 1996, Vernon and Osgood are your goalies who win the Jennings. Jim Carey, the net detective, wins it in Washington, that winning the Vezina. Of all of the Vezina winners, I'll go out on a limb and say Jim Carey had the shortest career and was the one big flash in the pan. As much as Blaine Locker, the Lock Monster, threatened to do something similar in Boston, it never really worked out for him. 1997, Marty Brodeur shows up on the board with Mike Dunham as the backup. Hasek wins the Vezina again. Brodeur wins the Jennings in 98. Hasek wins the Vezina again. 1999, Belfour, now with the Dallas Stars, wins himself another Jennings with Roman Turek. 1999, Hasek wins the Vezina again. 2000, Roman Turek takes the Jennings with him to St. Louis. 2 years in a row, 2 different teams. Pretty sure he's the only goalie on the board to do it. There is a trivia question for you. You're going to stump some people with that one. Because people are going to guess Hasek. They're going to guess Roy. They're not going to guess that Roman Turek won the Jennings with 2 different teams in 2 seasons. Kolzig. Olaf Kolzig wins his 1 Vezina Trophy that year. 2001, Hasek, actually, post best goals against, wins the Jennings and the Vezina at the same time. 2002, Patrick Roy, now with Colorado, wins himself the Jennings Award, whereas Jose Theodore, in his former organization of Montreal, these guys, he's the goalie of the year, and he also had the Hart that year. Jose Theodore had a fantastic season that year, which set him up for that whole, he can't follow that up well, and he didn't. While Jose Theodore went on to have a pretty solid career, he could never get back to where he was that season. 2003, 2 teams share the Jennings Trophy. So it's Roman Cechmanek and Robert Esche for the Flyers. That's an unlikely tandem to win much. Brodeur shares that with them. Brodeur, though, doesn't share as he wins his first Vezina Trophy. So Hasek is done winning the Vezina, and here comes Brodeur. And, of course, Patrick Roy is gone as well. Roy won his 3 Vezinas late 80s, early 90s, but he was always in the mix. 2004, so the last year before the lockout, Marty Brodeur is the guy that with the best goals against average wins the Jennings, and he wins the Vezina Trophy. We have the lockout season gone. 2006, when we come back, Mika Kiprasov wins both the Vezina Trophy and the Jennings. 2007, the Minnesota Wild are on the board with Fernandez and Backstrom. That's the other Nick Backstrom as the goaltender for the Minnesota Wild. Marty Brodeur wins the Vezina. 2008, Osgood and Hasek. Hasek wins himself another Jennings, along with Chris Osgood, who was a pretty good goaltender himself. Brodeur wins another Vezina. 2008, that was 2008. 2009, Thomas, so Tim Thomas, and Fernandez. So Manny Fernandez wins himself 2 Jennings trophies, and one definitely not as a main guy in Boston. It was supposed to be, but Thomas ended up being the starter. And Tim Thomas ended up winning the Vezina that year as well. 2010, Brodeur wins himself another Jennings Award. Ryan Miller is goalie of the year that year. 2011, Luongo and Schneider share the Jennings Award, whereas Tim Thomas is once again the Vezina winner. Tim Thomas won Jennings, and more than that of the Vezina. So again, it does change things quite a bit. 2012, Yarrow Halak and Brian Elliott are your Jennings Award winners, and Henrik Lundqvist ends up winning the Vezina that year. 2013, Corey Crawford and Ray Emery share the Jennings, whereas Bobrovsky of Columbus ends up being the Vezina winner. 2014, Jonathan Quick shows up on the board for LA as your Jennings Award winner, whereas Tuukka Rask was decided to be the best goalie of the year. 2015, Corey Crawford's on the board again with the Jennings. Best goals against for Chicago. However, it is Carey Price who gets the Vezina, and shares that Jennings with Crawford. So again, we got 2 teams winning that award in 2015. Crawford and Price share it. 2016, at which point Carey Price said, "Can I share one of your Stanley Cup rings?" And Crawford just walked away. 2016, John Gibson and Freddie Anderson win themselves Jennings. So Freddie Anderson's got himself some hardware. Braden Holtby is named the best goalie of the year that year with the Vezina. Holtby wins the Jennings the following year, which means he can't have the Vezina. That goes to Sergei Bobrovsky, who's never had the Jennings Award. Not getting it this year either. 2018, it's Jonathan Quick, who has the best goals against average and wins that award with the Kings. Pekka Rinne, of course, wins his first Vezina Trophy, first time he's on the board. And if we're going to project out where things are going to go in 2019, it definitely looks like the Islanders should be the ones that win that Jennings. So it would go to Thomas Greiss, and it would go to Robin Lehner. But I have a hard time seeing either of them necessarily being Vezina. I think Freddie Anderson could get himself his first Vezina. But it's interesting because there are a lot of really great goaltenders who don't have a whole lot of awards with the Vezina Trophy. So looking over the all-time greats, Dominik Hasek, 3 Jennings trophies, and he has 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Count them, 6 Vezinas. Marty Brodeur, 4 Jennings, 4 Vezina. So it wouldn't make a difference how you graded it. Brodeur still comes out with 4. Patrick Roy, 5 Jennings trophies, 3 Vezina. So if we went with the old system, Patrick Roy would be remembered as a goaltender with 5 Vezina trophies. Turk, 2 Jennings trophies, no Vezinas. Of course, he didn't have a Vezina, but the fact he has 2 Jennings trophies shows a lot. Jonathan Quick, 2 Jennings and no Vezinas. The fact that he has the same number of Jennings trophies as Turk and no other hardware is kind of strange to me, so I thought I'd document it. Tim Thomas, 1 Jennings trophy, 2 Vezinas. Belfour, 4 Jennings, 2 Vezinas. Andy Moog, 1 Jennings, no Vezinas. Of course, Moog's one of my favorites. Never won the Vezina Trophy. Luongo, one of my favorites as well. Jennings Trophy, he has 1, no Vezinas. And there have been people who've said Luongo doesn't belong in the Hall of Fame because he doesn't have a Vezina Trophy. And I can understand that point of view. I could also say in a 30-team league, it's a lot harder to win than it used to be. Osgood, 2 Jennings, no Vezinas. Braden Holtby has 1 of each. Lundqvist has a Vezina, no Jennings. Bobrovsky, 2 Vezinas, no Jennings. And Carey Price has 1 of each. So there you go. Let me just pan down a little bit. See, Carey Price right there, 1 of each. So there you go. Just to look at how, if they had never brought in the Vezina Trophy, this is your list of Vezina winners. And it would leave out Luongo, or no, if you just had the Jennings in place, it would change things a lot. Hasek would have only won 3 instead of 6. Raw would have won 5. And it just, Lundqvist never would have won it. Bobrovsky never would have won it. It's interesting. It's an interesting list of guys who've won that trophy and guys who won this one. And again, and I mentioned this earlier, and what stoked this one was when we were talking about Marc-Andre Fleury and his place in the current Vezina standings, and the fact that his save percentage and his goals against average I didn't think were that great in terms of saying best in the league. But what's interesting too is Marc-Andre Fleury, nowhere to be found on the list. And yet, if you ask people, I would say more than 50% of hockey fans regard Marc-Andre Fleury as a future Hall of Famer. This is how things have changed with goaltending. What we used to use to decide what made a goaltender great, which was Vezina trophies and Stanley Cups, now you can have one without the other and still be considered one of the greats, to which I would say, please put Chris Osgood in the Hall of Fame. Thank you very much. There you go. Let me know your thinking regarding this. Let me know what you guys, how you guys feel about this. It's just kind of a fun thing to do again because it's a night off from the NHL. So, yeah. Thank you guys so much for watching. Hit like and subscribe if you're browsing your way through. You just happened upon this video. And hey, thank you guys so much for watching. I'll talk to you again soon.